Hello, sad ends. The holiday is over. I'm back home and I had such a great time being out in New Zealand with Elaine. Elaine is still here, so I haven't lost her. See, there she is. She's just doing a nice hello, everyone. That's Elaine. Woo! Unfortunately, I'm going to let Elaine do her own thing whilst I play with Osmo. Osmo and I are going to be talking to you about the equipment that I eventually found myself using most of the time. I did use some stuff, but you are going to notice one thing missing. Yes, can you spot it out? All the stuff that I have on there. Yes, so sad. Rest in many pieces, dear drone. You are probably floating towards the Antarctic right now. It was very sad. What happened to him was that I flew him off near, I can't remember what part, we were on the west coast near the beach and I was going around the cliffs. It was a really beautiful landscape. And I went around the cliffs, lost signal to him, and he was on his return home feature, and I think he said hello to a cliff. And I never saw him again. So it was very sad. I've gotten rid of most of my drone stuff. It was a really, really sad incident. But thankfully, Elaine was there to comfort me and there was more beautiful landscapes. And if it wasn't for, if the Elaine wasn't enough to comfort me, I had 10 billion sandflies with me mourning the death of my drone. So anyhow, without any further ado, let's talk about the photography gear. And this is a good recap from that first video that I actually did. So I can actually show you what I actually did use most of the times. And this will be handy for anyone else who wants to book a camper van trip and go take pictures of New Zealand. So let's go. Whee! Let's have a look at all the stuff. So what ended up being my main workhorse camera was, as expected, my 5D3. I shot around about 1,000 raw images on him. I changed over, I used 16 gigabyte SD cards. I swapped between two. I transferred most of all my images at least once or twice a night on my MacBook Pro to back up. Had a spare battery. I ended up charging the batteries over, I think, about 4 times. So I think I had about 4 charges of battery. So make sure when you go, you have your battery chargers there. And I did realize that batteries do run a little bit less out in the cold weather. So make sure your batteries are topped up whenever you can. And also on a camper van, you can't plug your AC equipment in there. So you're going to have to be on powered sites to charge your batteries. Make sure you note that, because I did not know that before I went. Luckily, I was quite sparingly using my batteries, but do bear in mind your batteries do run a little bit less in the colder weather and charging points are a little bit lesser to come by. We actually stopped by the library on our second day to use their PowerPoints. Anyway, let's talk about lenses. The main lens that I probably used, actually, it was probably almost equal portions between my 16 to 35 and my 24 to 105 lens. Actually, I thought this one was going to be the main one for most of the time and this one would have been just seldomly used, but he was actually quite useful to have, mainly because of the extra reach of the 105 and the image stabilizer, which was really good, that I found. Because what I didn't realize, well, I actually did realize before, but a simple thing is that when you're shooting out landscapes, is what I was doing most of the time, I'm photographing at around about f8 to f11. So having that I've rarely shot at 2.8. I mainly used 2.8 actually when I was doing the nighttime photos, capturing the stars, and that's when the 2.8 came in handy. I didn't use 105 f4 for the night skies. I used my 16 to 35. Now, I was a bit hesitant to bring the 70 to 200 and the 30D camera, but after the trip, I'm actually quite glad that I did bring it. I did actually use him quite a bit. I had him, the reason being is because the camper van was quite good, because for space-wise, I didn't move around. The gear stayed pretty close to me most of the time, so I didn't have to cart it for heavy distances. So this camera stayed a lot with a camper van, and most of my shots, about 95% of my shots, I reckon, I did was, within 15 meters of the camper van. So having a camera like this wasn't too bad. It's just being in the luggage, getting to and from the airport. But once you're in the camper van, he was okay to have. And he actually did do a really good job. The 7200, obviously, you get your reach and your compression in space with the 200 millimeters, and that just been a really good lens. There are some really good landscape shots that I got with this lens. So going on a camper van trip, I actually did find him very useful to have. I also had my EOS 3, which was a film camera. This is optional. I just felt like wanting to shoot film, really, and I did use them. I actually ended up just using 2 rolls of Kodak Ektar 100, which I'm yet to develop. I'm hoping to get that developed in a couple of days to see. You don't have to do it. It was just another camera to bring, but I just wanted to shoot film. Filters, yes, I did use a good portion of them a lot. Didn't use ND 1000 or 10 stop very often, maybe twice or 3 times. When I was at the Chasm, when we went visit the waterfall, was probably where he was used the most. Couldn't really shoot Milford Sounds with this 10 stop filter because we were on a boat. So that doesn't make much of a difference. I actually brought my tripod to Milford Sounds as well. I didn't even using him as well. So another tip. But polarizer filters, really handy to have. Really brings out the blues in the skies and adds saturation to the pictures. Have a look at the pictures of my that I shot of Mount Cook on the early morning, and you'll see the polarizers really taking an effect there. Obviously, my trusty tripod. He was used quite extensively for most of my shots. My tripod's quite a unique piece, actually. He's quite modified. You won't be able to buy him at a shop like this. I came back, actually, to Amberley to grab this piece, and I'm so glad that I did. And what this piece does is actually allows me to photograph the camera in portrait mode whilst keeping the center of gravity central to the column. Quite a unique piece, and he was really used because I like to shoot a lot of my landscapes in portrait. So he was really good to bring. Glad I brought him along. My R Sport strap. I didn't really use it that much. He was mainly just to have quick access to a camera whilst I was carrying it, most of my stuff in a vest. I mainly had my film camera attached to this because most of the time my film camera was my secondary camera. Had the 5D just by itself in hand a lot. So didn't really use a strap very much. Head torch, essential, absolutely essential. When we're out in the campsites, when we haven't got power and you're just going outside, it's pitch black out there. When you're walking around Lake Alexandrina or Lake Tepico, those places are really dark, or out in Boundary Creek, you're not going to see anything. You're going to have to bring a torch. If you're taking pictures early in the morning, you want to have your hands free, so yeah, I wouldn't leave home without that. Pocket Wizard Plus 2 with a remote cable. Valuable, totally invaluable. Because I travelled with Elaine on my trip, and just to grab photos of the both of us, having this setup allowed me to take photographs remotely and wirelessly. Instead of just conventionally just running backwards and forwards, putting the camera on timer, putting a flash on board the top. These were really well used. My photo vest, an unsung hero. He really did save a lot, and he was really handy. I might actually do a separate video on him. He was a godsend. He made things lighter. I can carry a lot in him, and he was really, really good. Remote cable, obviously, to fire off shots when I was at low angles. I can't access the shutter very well or see very well. Having that remote shutter, and I shot in bulb a few times more when I was at Late Night Sky. And that's basically it. That's most of the gear that I used, and Osmo that I'm using here. Osmo takes my videos, and he was really, really good. That's what I mainly used for in regards to photography on my trip. So I hope you found that part interesting, and these are coming towards the end of the videos. So hope you found all my videos and tutorials and the blogs and stuff useful. And if you are planning to go on a trip to New Zealand and hiring a camper van and taking pictures, I highly recommend it. I can't wait to do that again. I'm sure Elaine would like to do that again tomorrow, but we just can't, unfortunately. So till next time, I hope you find this handy, and I will see you soon next time. Bye-bye.